All right, Chris, there's a couple of different things that came out in the news that you told me about. I have not had the opportunity to research what the OpenAI operator is and the Microsoft Omni parser. Um, People are trying to figure out what all these agents are doing, and now we're having other tech kind of override the LLM, the agents, the parsers. What are these two new items, and then how do they differ from what people already thought was possible?
Yeah. So one thing to say is these technologies have been around a while. They were used, some of these underneath the scenes to say build generative AI models, to scrape websites and look for things. They're good at navigating websites. They've now put a natural language and LLM in front of them. So this is different than say a copilot in which I'm in Microsoft Word using that copilot or Excel using that copilot. These, the OpenAI operator and Microsoft Omni parser V2 now, what they can do is you can actually give it a general instruction. So this is supervised. Open up and find me a recipe for pot roast, and then it'll find it. And you say, okay, I need a shopping list, and it should be able to extract the ingredients and go create a shopping list. But you're directing it along the way to say what's there. Now, what people are thinking is like, wow, they're not realizing because the marketing demos are clever. It's a voiceover of a recording. And so they're kind of not putting in all the details that a person is helping along the way, all the steps. It could be, I have an Excel spreadsheet
The
with,
person, you mean the user, right?
the
You
user.
actually orchestrate. The person is orchestrating all of this. Okay.
Yeah. So you're making a decision. And there's a different workflow, if you will, to say, get me a shopping list versus say, here's the Little Leagues Excel spreadsheet. I need to email everybody about practice last week and a pizza party and give them instructions. Well, yes, you can go get the emails out of there, but you still have to tell it what to put in the email and what day of the week is the practice and is it, in full gear or not, things like that. You're providing all the details. So people are thinking of this thinking they're looking at it's a great eye candy demo. Like we want all demos to have motion and things move, but it's a demo. It's not really something you're going to be able to put in the enterprise because the user is prescribing every step. So think about there's some input. You're the categorization engine. What am I trying to accomplish? You're then sending it to an LLM and giving instructions and fine tuning along the way. So it seems neat, but is it really practical? And if you actually go to the bottom of the page, which no one ever goes below the fold, we all know, it explicitly says this AI agent will not read financial data. This will ignore tables if it thinks it's like insurance claims on financial stuff. So the things they've put safety into these, so you couldn't go say scrape a whole bunch of people's websites nefariously and get their bank accounts if you knew their logins, right? So they're actually putting some safety measures to prevent interesting data, which is actually all the data we would want at the enterprise level. We would want to go get a customer's invoices and their general ledger and go read it. And so it's going to flag that as, oh, this is financial data. I can't read it. So it's interesting people confused. But if we step back, this is talking about an agentic framework and how that flow works. So like it will pop up an image here. Think about you've got some type of input. A manager is going to look at that and say, I'm going to pass this to different agents that have different skills, and then magically you get output. The problem is, how do you get from input to an agent? And which agent? How do you do it? It's not magic, and it's very context specific to your business. So, Scott, if you were going to build, say, an agent for the website for lead retrieval, for a campaign on downloading a white paper, what would you do?
Well, I would not have an LLM do it because an LLM could only describe the process, right? I mean, we've talked about your AI must do something. So you're asking me about
Yeah.
to do something. I mean, it's actually pretty complicated. Most people don't understand. I mean, digital advertising and digital marketing is pretty simple, but there's a lot of steps from creating the certain offer for the certain person.
Yeah. So
They
download
fill
the
out
PDF.
they gotta fill out a form to get a certain PDF, right? You have to code that, like, give them this when they do this. Then you have to, in the back end, create all these, data tags so you can string all the automation together. There is automation, but it's assembled by hand, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
logic is per person, per day, per offer, right?
Right.
And then hopefully they don't clear their cookies in their browser and you can follow them around on the internet, right? With subsequent offers that make sense only to them. So it's actually pretty complicated. An LLM would not do any of that. The only thing that it would do would maybe help you write the emails that
Right.
get sent.
So if your say your campaign is do a try and buy, click here to register, you're saying that's actually a completely different business workflow.
Everything is different, right? I mean, if you look in the back end of our website, I think you'd be surprised at how many different business rules are back there because it is, you're trying to serve up a a relevant experience and you just can't do that because there's too many rules, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
have to be prescriptive. Like you were talking about with this with the baseball and cooking, right? Everyone understands the cooking show analogy where I watch a cooking show for 30 minutes, but the thing really took 4 hours to cook. It doesn't make sense. And I think people are misled, right? Especially with the LLMs, because the LLM seems to know everything, but it just understands the context of your input, right? It can't do anything.
Right. So, so John, from a perspective, how do we get people to understand that to get from input to actually the LLM doing something without a person supervising and providing all the input and doing everything? Like we've got to literally think about that. Obviously, there's got to be some platform. We've got to have an outcome and to start with, but there's a lot of things you have to do to categorize this. Know what is a policy for if it's customer support. If you're a platinum or a bronze customer, what's your SLA? How can you contact me? Things like that, and the actual steps. And most importantly, in enterprise, it can't be willy nilly. You have to log things. You have to follow procedures for SOC 2 or for compliance and GDPR and all. I mean, all the good accounting procedures. You have to, debits and credits have to match. There's a lot of business rules
I mean,
that
think of all
it's a big
the
stress.
service level agreements, right? You have to honor all those.
Yeah. So, John, how do we actually go about rethinking those steps and making it autonomous versus a human nudging it along?
Right, right. So you guys have hit on a really interesting theme because the what is unfortunate, and by the way, we're all in software. We're all guilty of the overly generously simplistic demo that is supposed to show that everything is great and easy to do, right? Um, so I don't want to raise my hand like literally, but here it goes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but agentic platforms that don't have the maturity and the years of being used, being built for and used for real enterprise purposes, they just don't have the ability to accomplish a legitimate business outcome right now. And just full stop. Just quit joking with yourself. Um, what an LLM is pretty cool about is being able to predict the common sense set of things that would happen in a given situation. Like, uh, I'm going to organize a party. You were organizing a party, right, Chris? I'm
Yep.
going to organize a party. What are the steps? Great. It's going to give you here's typically what the steps would be. Great. You wire up that manager agent to uh, task execution agents or skills agents that it can then essentially attempt to orchestrate, assemble them in the right order and execute them. And then you think, wow, now I've got an agentic platform. Here's this epiphany. Oh my gosh, no one has to actually do anything anymore. We can just tell the AI what we want it to do. Well, I sort of went into La La Land for that last little part now, didn't I? Because as you guys had already been pointing out, businesses certainly, we'll say, businesses start from common sense and devolve from there, we'll say, right? In reality, what they do is they make commitments, right? They sign up for absolutes. There are prescriptions of that they have either self-imposed or externally been imposed upon them that they must do. And so this notion of, hey, we got input and we got this manager who's going to do it for you, the manager doesn't know what to manage. In fact,
Right.
if you brought a manager into your organization right now, he or she would need months to get the context of knowing how to run even reasonable, not even your most sophisticated processes. So an LLM is just going to guess that for you, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Just
I,
let's just start with no. So what do we need then? Is this a complete farce? It's close, right? And look, I'm a career-long AI guy, so I'm not saying AI is a farce, but this whole idea of agentic platforms, as several of them have been released recently, are attempting to make you believe they are. What do we need then? We must be able to prescribe the steps that must happen. If there's not a way for you to be very clear with these steps must happen and these are the conditions upon which they must happen, and this is the immutable aspect of the process, and these are the conditions on which it will or will not execute, and when it will stop, and under which, or all of that stuff, and when I will rope in not just the person who's staring at the screen I'm looking at right now, but a person in a role in a different part of the company in order to get the process to continue moving. All of the notion of what happens today in a real business, right? An outcome crosses departments, it crosses systems, it crosses people. It does. If you can not encapsulate that whole aspect of things, you just don't have a platform you can actually automate a business process with. You're still playing with a personal productivity thing that in many cases is a toy.
How many
So
times, John, when people talk to us about the business process and, and we ask them, okay, what are the prescribed steps that, must happen for this situation? Like how many times out of 100 do they nail it? Like they can chalk it on
zero,
a whiteboard and
yeah,
say, this
right?
happens, and then this happens, and this happens, and
Zero,
this happens,
Yeah.
right?
yes. That's
Right. So hopefully you said 0, but because like people assume that the AI would somehow know all of that. Like how possibly even a new employee would know logically what to do, but not how you do it. The AI could do the same. Like logically, well, typically this happens, right?
right,
But it
right.
doesn't know anything.
Yes, it can grab a center point of what the available training data told it is common of which is and that's not a bad start, guys, right? I mean, I'm all for let's get a jump start, whatever, but that is not an executable. You can't then say, okay, well, it's got a decent idea that looks about right. That's not how it works. That's not that we don't live in that world, right? I mean, if there was never a regulator, a boss, a policy, a procedure, a contract, or an email that said, sure, I'll do it that way, then you probably could survive that. But obviously, you have every one of those things, and so we can't survive that. Again, what we don't want to do is dissuade you from leveraging AI. Right? We're literally built for leveraging AI in the core business functions. So what we're saying is, you can't do it by abdicating your responsibility for driving your processes and thinking that some mystic supernatural knowledge is going to just be embodied in some AI and it's going to do it for you. Just get out of that, right? Go away. That doesn't help you. What helps you is, yes, you're right, Scott. Navigate the very complicated aspect of figuring out even what the steps are to accomplish this, because it is invariably multifaceted based on so many different conditions. It crosses departments and people and systems. And so one person isn't all knowing, even within your organization, of course, making an LLM even less likely to be. But then when you do actually get to the point where you can prescribe those steps successfully, do that in a platform that can enrich that like mad with agentic workflow so that every step is not every possible thing I would need to be able to do at this moment. Let AI handle all of the things that at this point, common sense would tell me I need to access policy information for this user in order to answer that question. Or I've received a response from a system that is completely out of tune with what common sense would tell me it should be. Or, hey, admin who told me to do this, I think we might be missing a step here where this is important, right? Shouldn't we think about this step as a part of the process before we even make this live? Those are just 3, and we come up with 300 ways that AI can dramatically enrich the execution of what I'm describing, what sounds like a hard-coded business process. Well, by the way, if there's no aspect of it that's hard-coded, you are a completely chaotic, unpredictable organization. So you better have some pieces that are hard-coded, right? The thou shalt and we will. You can't have a it might or we'll ask it to. Those are not That's not it. That's not it.
Well,
That's not where you're going
yeah,
for.
where you
That's
should
not
be
the
able to
that's not the
maybe do
goal,
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
right?
So yeah. So John, I've looked at some of the people out on the road. They've got some new demos out there. Look, we have these agents. This one reads a contract for you magically. This one knows how to do invoices. This one does this. And so what you're saying is when they show, it's going to tell you if this contract is missing an information, and they show the workflow's 3 steps. How does it know if it's a real estate contract, a deed for land, or a software sales contract? Because you would have to look for different things, right? It can't be a 3-step workflow that they show in the demos, right?
No, and your organization will have a different perspective about what is and isn't relevant in those contracts relative to others in your market. And you will behave differently based on what those conditions tell you in that particular case. And you may have certain people that need to be involved to be collaborating on what you would do at that point, where many things, maybe you can take a machine learning classification type, not an LLM style, but a classification type decision that's like, look, we see this condition often, we're good with it in this range and we're not in this. And the AI would learn that, not LLMs. LLMs, by the way, you are not training an LLM, guys. And you are very likely not fine tuning one either. You are not training an LLM. It is not getting smarter the more you use it. It is just continuing to do what it guessed, right?
Yeah.
So that, and that, by the way, is not what I'm talking about when I say our organization has a point of view, and the AI that we build within Krista, or Krista builds to be more precise, would in fact get to the point where, like, I know I don't need to pull in my friends in legal for this one, because I know this set of conditions we are good with, and I can autonomously operate in this case because I've been trained by this organization for this particular use case with this type of content. Not, I read it on the internet when I was trained, and therefore I'm just going to take a shot, right? We just don't, it just can't operate that way. Um, I hate to be so harsh about this, but I really want to be clear. This is a, unfortunately, really bad motion. It'll set us back a ways if companies try to embark on a journey where they think that this really is where software goes next for them. Um, they, it is all about AI, but it is not about someone abdicating the necessary to an LLM that we just had to turn off because it's still fabricating news on your phone.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, come on, guys. We, I mean, how many times has one of the largest retailers and one of the biggest and best AI providers, by the way, had to fail and push off the release of their next big AI assistant because they can't get LLMs to behave consistently? And you're now going to say, consistently run my business process in this particular way and do it autonomously? No, right? So prescribed steps, highly enriched in the building of those steps and in the execution of those steps with AI, and capabilities that you can introduce into that process that take human bottlenecks out, accelerate and improve the experience for people. All of that, absolutely. But unfortunately, we're going through a particular moment of immaturity in those who are producing AI and AI platforms, because frankly, they themselves are immature. I mean, you got to look at a 6-month-old company that says, I know how to run your business, and they just got out of uni themselves. You really have to kind of think about, oh, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe I have a little bit of obviousness. Why don't you prompt a model with that? I got a guy that's been out of school for 6 months, and he tells me he knows how to build software that'll instinctively run my business for me. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't derive common sense now, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
that would
this
work.
is an interesting concept. We educated people 3 years ago that Krista builds machine learning models, right? Or categorizers bespoke to you, because
Mhm.
how we categorize an email for customer one is different from customer two. You can't buy that.
Nope.
We need data, and we train the model. So what you're saying is, if someone says, I have an agent and this agentic agent is magic, it's not bespoke to you.
Mhm.
You literally are going through the same process of a customer service agent is bespoke to you because your policies are different. A contract reading agent is bespoke to you because it could be a sales contract, it could be an offer letter to buy land, or it could be, selling software. And they have to follow your company. So
Yeah.
we talked about, you need AI that's bespoke to you. So are we really saying that you now need agentic agents, a platform to start with, but they have to be bespoke to your processes?
Many of them, right? They, of course. Now, if you see, and of course, we're putting agent on the end of every single word, right?
Yeah, well, I
Every
mean,
property now
there's an agent for everything, and they're
yeah,
mostly task level things that you can buy. And if you run it, then it runs the same for
yeah,
everybody, right?
yep, yep. This is my drinking agent. Yeah, and yeah, so so the but if we get that if we get down to what we're really looking for here, there is a there. The skills that can be powered by AI that you're right, Chris, we've said for years, right? There are a set of AI delivered skills that your organization needs to take advantage of. And they are third-party AI capabilities, right? LLMs are giving us lots of those and more all the time. And that's unbelievably awesome. Um, you just have to use them right. Um, and then there's a whole set that you'll have to create with techniques that have existed for years that you'll need to be able to leverage in order to really complete your story, right? And so absolutely. Now let's call those all agents if we want to agent wash the living daylights out of it. We can. We can totally do it. Let's do it. But but fundamentally, you will guide that in a variety of ways. You will prescribe the steps, the immutables, the things, the thou shalts and we wills, right? That sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And you will leverage those capabilities to then say, wait a minute, do I really need my folks doing that redundant pattern matching or recognition of, you know what? AI can figure out pretty quickly. Our best customers get that level of discount. And I don't have to stick this in front of supervisors who already have too much to take care of. And we hold up our line support people and we got a customer waiting for an answer. We don't need to do that. We can have AI answer that question and move right on through. And no, you can't prompt on model an LLM model that is not being trained and is not learning from you and is not to do that because as you just said a minute ago, Chris, very correctly, your perspective and your point of view is quite different. And it even varies over time. So that is all why you need a platform, an agentic platform. Yeah, it's got to have a much richer set of AI capabilities and system capabilities than others that we've seen outside of Krista. And it has got to learn to deal with people. I just continue to get, I just don't get it. It you know, all of these, all of
Well,
these,
deal with people or interact with people, right? Because
well, I guess maybe you could say it both ways now, couldn't you?
yeah,
How about this? It is insufficient to enable people, to integrate people, to deal with people. Just send an email.
yeah.
You're not bringing people into the process by doing that, are you? In fact, you're fire and forget without follow-up, without escalation, without any kind of notion of quorum, and you've just stalled a process that, by the way, is not running in a platform that knows how to run things for longer than just a few minutes. So you're not going to achieve much. As soon as you recognize that a process that actually has a meaningful ability to impact your business, if enriched with AI and automated more, is going to necessarily take hours to days, right? Even to weeks or months. It's going to require multiple roles of people involved along the way, or hopefully not as often because AI can stand in place and make some of those tactical decisions for you. But again, only if it's trained on your data. It certainly isn't, you certainly don't want the center of the internet's wisdom on should we do that or should we not. That's not generally what you guys would think is, again, moving your business forward, right? That's not how you thought about it, right?
You
Like, hey,
train
why
your business on Reddit. Yeah.
exactly. Why would we bother interviewing people? We'll just ask AI to do to answer all these questions for us and we'll just be done, right? I mean, come on. Why even interview people?
You should train it on YouTube comments because people there are brilliant. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
I know it's a digression. I'm sorry, guys, but I love how many people are so upset that their social media and YouTube is being used for training. And I'm like, yeah, can you stop them, please?
yeah.
Right?
So,
I'm
so John,
not where the perspective we're looking for is coming from, especially when people say, we had a partner meeting this week with They were looking at other platforms and they've chosen us, which is great. That's not why I bring this up. The CEO of this company literally asked me this question. So, John, I don't see a place in Crystal, like right here, where I can give it like additional instructions and like I can tell it to make sure that it does certain things versus not do other things. And I after a second of not really even being sure what he meant, I latched onto where, oh, I get it. He's been demoed some kind of super flimsy agentic platform. I said, no, Mike, you're not gonna see that in Krista because that is a scary idea. Are you really seriously gonna like type some extra instructions and hope the LLM actually incorporates them and makes in there and you're gonna be safe? You think that's gonna work? He said, well, actually, no, not at all. But these guys basically said, we'll do this. You just instruct, and then if you have any like special conditions or rules, just be sure to put them in. And then they said it should do it. Well, we didn't even get that far because I was still like, I'm still lost. I didn't even know how that would work. Mike, that won't work. That won't work. They're basically saying, I don't have the ability to prescribe. I can't make sure what you need to execute as an organization goes. And I can enrich it with AI. They've actually abdicated the actual orchestration to AI in such a way that they cannot promise you that they will carry out what you want them to. And they're hoping you put in enough comments, the LLM doesn't forget them and goes and does the right thing.
Wow.
You don't have a prompt context window large enough to say that, to get all of that stuff in there. It just doesn't. So anyway, we got too much. It's too easy to take shots at these early thoughts around agentic when we've been in this market, obviously so much longer, and we've done so much more real, honest, goodness work here. But I still hope folks come away with the thought it's not that AI can't really enrich and infuse a business in a miraculous almost way, right? I mean, it's unbelievable some of the stuff we're pulling off here, but it's capabilities that must be carefully assembled in certain ways, leverage AI as a very important aspect. But this isn't abdicate to AI. You run your business. You prescribe these steps that must happen, and you enrich it with AI, and you end up in a really awesome place.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part for, people evaluating the technology because they went from a very minute question and answer format, and then they saw task level agents, right? Where the scope is really small and the process is like an instant, right? You're just there using it and it does like a process, buys a movie ticket, does whatever, right? But you talked a few minutes ago about how long something takes. And, we don't really talk about that a lot, but I think that is important because if you have a process that takes, X number of minutes, like that's tough to it's tough to hang on to, right? Just to keep that state, you keep whatever the process is and however many people are involved is to keep that state. So you're ready to, push that process along and then, nudge it based on whatever happens, right? I mean, that is very specific. And I don't think people take that high level view of AI because they're using AI in a browser. They're using Gen AI in a browser and they think this is the way everything ought to work. Everything is an instant, but almost nothing is an instant.
Any specific task could be almost instantaneous. Any specific thing that you need to be doing right this moment, and AI can help you do it, go for it, right?
Yeah.
Why would you not take advantage of any tool or anything that can make you, well, within reason, right? Let's not be prompting our price book for our best customer to
Well, yeah, but like
yeah,
coding agents, things like that are great.
yeah. So let's yeah, as people trying to get more done and get a little and get as much tedium off of our own backs as possible. Absolutely. But that doesn't translate into that can run my business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
it can't cross that chasm into it now can operate at an outcome level, which is why we use that word outcome, and it's probably too vague. We need a better word, but we're really here to make sure that happens, right? So certainly we're not, we're all avid users of all kinds of publicly available AI. We're just paying for it to make sure we can get some promises out of them about, fair use of our data, right? But that doesn't translate, and that is the thing that makes it understandable from a business owner's perspective, right? You like, wait, I can go to ChatGPT, I can go into Gemini, I can go into these, I can do this thing. It was crazy good what it was able to do. I was really surprised. Not being able to kind of decompose how it was capable of doing that, but not immediately that means capable of doing all these other things, right? It doesn't necessarily translate for people who aren't living in this stuff like we are. It doesn't translate that that's a gap that's too big to jump, right? So I get it. I get the understanding, but I do want people to recognize if you just say out loud what you're thinking your agentic platform is going to do, you will sound silly. Yeah.
I love it.
You just have to say it out loud to yourself.
Yeah.
Because I've actually had to do this. We just raised a round of funding, which was great, right? Even in a tough market, all that. Had an investor saying, well, you guys are an agentic platform. What do you think about your competitors in that platform? And I said, well, describe what they do. And this was a guy from a legitimate, right, VC. And he very matter-of-factly described all of the folly that we just went through. And I said, now, did you hear what you just said? Oh, yeah. And do you think that that's even close to reality and feasible? And do you really think that that's actually going to happen? And then it took like 15 seconds for him to actually come back. I wasn't going to let him off the hook, unfortunately, for him. And he said, well, I guess it's vision, right? I said, yeah.
Yeah, it's vision.
That was which was, by the way, the best, a really good comeback, right? Love the vision. Just there needs to be a way to get there. We've worked hard on having an incredible vision, right? I mean, we're claiming Star Trek. I mean, we're skipping all the steps like these in between. I mean, we're done. We fully ripped off Gene Roddenberry. We know the destination. We're there, and we're backing into today as best we can. But we got to take judicious directional steps toward that vision. We can't take this kind of sidebar, this is all going to wash out kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think I sent this video to you guys about the CEO of Oculus, and he was
Yeah.
talking about, science fiction and the idea and the creator. He's like, the Oculus goggles were in Starship Trooper comic
Yes.
in the
Yeah,
60s, right?
turn of the century. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, same thing with Star Trek, right? I mean, the vision of just interacting, with your systems using natural language is not a new idea, but pulling it off is definitely tough.
And by the way, natural language interacting with the system is even itself not the even close to the real mission. The real mission is that there is a singular AI that orchestrates outcomes, and all of us interact with that system instead of trying to sort out all of the thousands of systems that actually it takes to run a ship. You just say computer, no matter where you are on that ship, no matter what type of activity you are involved in. And more that often than not, it is asking you to participate in something it needs to get done based on something either it or a person triggered in a previous episode. That is the magic we're actually building here. We need AI to drive the orchestration of outcomes of a business so that people are empowered to just interact with people, and when they interact with systems, interact with them from a human perspective, and not have to own the catalog of all the systems that everybody's got on their desktop, sorting out, trying to figure out how to use each one in order to get a piece of their job. That's not the vision is around the ship has got this. We give it direction and it takes us there. And the autonomous system, if you will, of the body, embodied in a business as well, that just like that computer is making sure all of those systems work. We don't have to have someone go hit a button, keep us alive today, turn on, right? Put oxygen in the air today, put oxygen in the air. Nor do we need for people to be able to say, wait, what's the name of the computer in this thing? I'm trying to do where do I go to, where on the ship do I have to be in order to ask this question? Or or where do I have to go? Or what do I have to call it? What's the jargon that it uses versus the jargon that other thing use? I'm more used to this other one that calls it a whatever. And now I'm in this other part and I don't know what they call the same thing, right? That is what people deal with today. That's got to go. That's where we find that Star Trek vision, and the one that we're so excited to be taking customers on that journey.
All right. Well, hopefully that solves some confusion. I don't know how well we did on that in terms.
It was therapy for me, if nothing else, and I apologize to anybody who had to be my therapist without payment.
Yeah, yeah. No, normally conversations like with John happen like this anyway. So this one was a little more off the cuff, but I totally appreciate the the rant and the vision, right? Because everyone has the same desire, but the path is going to be, it's definitely going to be different, right? So I appreciate you guys talking with me today.
Yeah, great chat. Take care.
All right, till next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.